On the motion, this House will allow prisoners to vote. My name is Jay. With me is Aina, Aina, and Tash. I would like to invite the Prime Minister. Yeah.
A state always must aim to protect the whole of society. The duty of care from the state expands to everyone within society. But why is that policy failing? We think that within prison or within the prison life, there is no political will to help prisoners as the normal human beings or normal citizens in society are treated. Because politicians are elected based on societal perceptions. And because most of society condemns prisoners they tend to control the way the government acts onto prisoners, right? So this causes prisoners to have horrible conditions in prisons because there is no political will to help them. They may have basic necessities, but there are certain harms that are stated out substantive to why we should help prisoners and why we should get rid of these horrible conditions, right? But why is it that when we give them the ability to vote, it will change the situation, right? When we give votes, we think that there will be a need to know of prisoners by society. When you give political will towards prisoners, there's more recognition by society, and there's more recognition by the state. Our policy is simple. We think that every prisoner should have the ability to vote just like any other person within society, within the state, right? So I have two arguments. Firstly, why is there a need to do so to fix the conditions of prisons? We have to recognize that we have to change the horrible conditions within prisons. So on first level, what are these horrible conditions, right? We think that the prisons in the first place are created to provide justice and help for the rehabilitation of individuals that are put in prison, right? But instead, the reality is there are rape cases, there are gangs that are formed within prisons, and there are beat ups of other individuals that are really not doing anything within prison, right? There is even the consumption of drugs within prison that is not regulated by the guards or by the government. I mean, when they're supposed to, right? No, sit down. This will cause them. I mean, this decreases the system of justice within prisoners, the role of prison in the first place, because they are exposed to such acts that will differ from the actual duty of prisons to rehabilitate and provide justice towards prisoners, right? So prisoners can get the opportunity to do whatever they want, within prisons, and not be regulated by the state because there is no political will. This will cause them to not come out as innocent individuals, innocent that are already rehabilitated and are ready to integrate, and they will not be ready to be integrated within society, right? So this will cause for individuals not be accepted within society, right? So there is no proper there will be there's no proper form of justice system for the prisoners within prison, right? But on the second level, how is this harmed by a lack of political will? We think that the lack of political will towards prisons causes the regulation of prisons to be decreased as a whole. We're talking less guards, less enforcement of the law. Of the state's law within prisons, right? So this gives opportunity towards this gives the opportunity towards prisoners to commit whatever they want within prisons, even though they are not allowed to. But what do we need to do within this situation, right? When we give the right for prisoners to voice out what they want, they can get better conditions, right? Because the state always works in a way to provide for. The state always works in a way to provide for all of society. So when you give that certain vote, you give the state a form of recognition, because the government is always looking for the government is always looking for votes, right, get power. So for them to get power, they must serve what society wants and what society needs, right? So the prisoners will get better conditions because because they're given the power to vote. They're given the power to control how the political system works and how they take care of society. So they can take care of prisons. They can get rid of the horrible conditions within prisons. There will be more regulations, more guards. The justice system will remain and will be reintegrated within prisons, and prisoners will come out as innocent people. The justice system will work. Yeah.
So definitely the media can actually expose what happens in the prison. Why do we still need people to vote, the prisoners to vote right now?
No, the thing is, society condemns prisons, right? Even the media, even the media condemns prisons. So there's lack of a political will to help prisoners, right?
Yeah.
So we think that the only form of people that can help prisoners are the prisoners themselves, right? That's why you can see prisoner unions within society. Within prisons that are fighting for their rights. We think that this is the extent of that itself. Right, when we give prisons the ability to vote, they can get rid of these horrible conditions. Right. On my second argument on societal mindset, right, we think on the first level that society is already against prisoners, right? So it's hard for prisoners to reintegrate. It's hard for prisoners to reintegrate within society. This is a result of discrimination by citizens. Discrimination by citizens because they still think that they aren't innocent, right? They condemn these prisoners that even when they come out of prison, right? So this causes the lack of incentive to hire these prisoners that just come out of prison to get a job. So the job opportunities for ex-prisoners will lack, right? So this causes a spike in the rate of recidivism, right? So prisoners will commit crimes because they don't get their needs, they don't get their money, or they're less likely because people aren't or corporations or employers are less likely to give them jobs in the first place, right? How do we fix that? We think when the government shows that there is the need to protect and to shape society, we are giving them. We think that when we are giving them votes, it is a recognition by the state, right? The society will realize that there is a form of innocence within prisoners because we're helping them. The state shows the state showed recognition. We can already see how the state showed recognition, like tax exemptions and how we provide sin taxes for cigarettes, so people won't buy such things. Right? For all those reasons, the project proposed.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. I'd like to invite Leader of Opposition.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I stand here and I will prove to you that what the PM said, and he said prisoners should have the ability to vote like anyone else in society. Now, I will prove to you that that is totally wrong. It can harm society, it can harm the economy, and it can harm the prisoners. Now, consider the fact that the Prime Minister of the actual state can actually bribe prisoners just to vote for the Prime Minister's own team in the elections. And now this can cause the prisoners to feel like slaves. And that's not really nice, is it? Now imagine during the elections, you are really supporting this team, and this team is called Team A. Now, just because of the 500,000 prisoners in Malaysia was bribed by the Prime Minister to vote for the Team B, which the Prime Minister is in, your very the team A that you love a lot cannot rule the country. So you wouldn't be that happy, right? And now, how this affects society is when they see the prisoners voting for the other team, for example, Team B, they won't really like them. And unlike what the PM said, instead of accepting them into society, they will think that they are committing another crime, voting for another team instead of voting for their own free will if they get bribed. Now, as we know, Malaysia's economy is not that good already. And if we were to get prisoners to vote and this motion to be true, the economy will drop even more if we get the prisoners to vote for the wrong person, making Malaysia not as good as it's meant to be. With that, I believe that prisoners should not vote at all, and that we should keep what is going on now in society, which is prisoners are not allowed to vote, continue on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister.
Democracy is all about trying to help as many people as we can, trying to cater to the moral justice that we need to accord to individuals in society, regardless of who they are, regardless of what group they come from. Even if they've done wrong to society, they deserve to be a part of state's initiatives. They deserve to get equal rights, to get equal benefits that the state tries to give to individuals. The problem in status quo is even if the state wants to facilitate democracy, the state is at the will of the people. If we can include prisoners within this will, if we can make that group larger and give states abilities to cater to individuals, politicians who have the need to maintain their position now need to also cater to prisoners, need to create manifestos that suit prisoners to maintain their political position. This is when we enhance democracy. Sean already proved to you that the false system that we call prison, the false hope that we have that it will rehabilitate individuals, how it creates higher levels of recidivism within society, how we think this is a state's tool in facilitating two things. One, it creates better conditions for prisons, how they provide a medium of isolation and justice, but at the same time, they are still the same medium in providing rehabilitation. We create conducive environments which aren't hindered by things like rape, by things like gangs, by things like bullying individuals within jail, or even creating individuals or making prisons a medium of transporting drugs, perhaps. These are problems which make it harder for prisoners to be better individuals, and that is what we want. But two, he said society generally doesn't accept prisoners, and that's a problem. No matter what we do within prisons, if people don't accept them, that is when we need to create that change. We have things like tax exemptions that makes people, encourage people to buy books or encourage people to exercise. Or we have things like deterrent factors, like sin taxes to prevent people from buying cigarettes or alcohol. The same way, we think that by giving individuals ability to vote, it shows the state's approval, shows the state's need to cater to these individuals, that these are people too, they deserve that right that every other citizen of this country does. This creates more, generates more discourse within society. This creates more need to change system? I have one argument. It's mostly comparative analysis on which side gives better paradigms or better outcomes and consequences. A, how this creates more need to help prisoners on domino effects. I'm going to examine 5 stakeholders of how this makes prisoners' lives better, and a general conclusion, this makes society's lives better because we have lesser rates of recidivism, we have lesser crime rates, and that makes everybody better. All my responses will be integrated within this argument or this comparative analysis, but there was one response that particularly stood out. This argument on corruption, how states have the ability to bribe individuals into voting for them. A, we think that political systems are, under most circumstances, for most countries, are transparent. That means even if states were to do this under your paradigm, it can't happen because prisoners already have horrible conditions. One day they have horrible conditions, the next they have better conditions. There are problems and there are ways to highlight this. But B, we already have natural check and balances within democracy that prevent this from happening, prevent states from having the ability to continuously keep themselves in power. Otherwise, this isn't a democracy, it is an autocracy, right? We think that we think that these systems already are in place. Sean already told you, we put the same positions. We have things like voting boxes within prisons. The same policies that we use to facilitate better democracy will still apply under our paradigm. Before I move on to my argument, are there any points of information?
Yes. You do agree that corruption happens even in the prison cell itself. Then how sure are you going to curb this problem of corruption in elections in the prison cells?
These are problems not caused by states' initiatives. They are caused by the lack of state initiatives. These are crimes of omission that cause harms towards these prisoners. That means if the state does take initiative in trying to do something, this is when we can curb corruption within prisons, because we can provide things like state security in facilitating democracy. We can provide things like top-level security in these voting processes or voting system. We don't think that technical issues should be a part of this debate. This debate should be about whether prisoners can vote and what are the outcomes of those decisions. A, how this creates more need to help prisoners. So states always have a need to change social behavior for the better in trying to target specific groups of individuals. The same way how we give extra benefits like positive discrimination towards minority groups, because we recognize that they're discriminated within society, because we recognize they're the lower foot within society and they're not equal. We try to give as much benefits to these individuals because they don't get jobs. Let's just face it, they don't get jobs the moment they leave jail. Some people are disowned by their parents the moment that they leave jail or the moment they enter jail. To begin with, they are even forced into rates of recidivism because they can't sustain their own needs. So states always have the need to cater to these individuals who are constantly discriminated, who are constantly oppressed within society, even if they have changed for the better. What is the first stakeholder which affects this? The media. This correlates to closing opposition's paradigm, right? How does the media enhance our policy? Let's just flip this over. He said that the media has a need to highlight problems within prisons. The media has a need to bring information to people. The way that information is interpreted is where all the harms that Sean illustrated happen. Media can bring information about prisons being bad, but if people still believe that prisoners deserve these horrible conditions, there is no change. When we implement voting systems within prisons, media still has the ability to bring information towards the people, but people can now interpret it in positive ways, in ways that are endorsed by the government, because media is endorsed by the government at the end of the day. So this is enhanced under our paradigm. There is more spread of information about how we respect prisoners and how even if they've committed some form of harm, we need to give them better security. But media also goes with a populist opinion, right? So if everybody hates prisoners, the media will gloat on people hating prisoners and enhance and blow up the issue altogether. So if we enhance voting, the media will also have a need to go to that populist opinion and make more people appreciate prisoners or support them under our paradigm. C, social lifestyle. When people change or when people come out of prisons, when they do change, they are not recognized. They don't have friends. They're discriminated within society. When this information is spread, when the state does take this initiative, there are more individuals who will accept society within that ring or within that ring of society. So these people will be recognized as individuals. What does this result of? More productivity. Because the argument that came from the leader of opposition, this is where I engaged with her. She said that it's bad for the economy, because now it's hard for Malaysia, even though we have already, she assumed that we already have a bad economy, and that's bad for us. Right? If prisoners or people who are going to hire prisoners can't do it because of the discrimination, there are more prisoners who are going to be hired under our paradigm, because states already changed the perception that these are people who are inhumane, these are people who don't deserve rights. So when we have more prisoners hired, that is more productivity. That allows us to escalate the economy because they are more contributing members of society, be it prisoners or be it normal individuals. So prisoners want to work, want to get jobs, jobs, but they don't get that opportunity. So this allows us to facilitate a better economy. My last level, stereotypes. Discrimination is what pushes individuals into recidivism. Giving them the ability to vote, giving them to show the changes that can happen when they have their political will, dilutes discrimination and doesn't give it the ability to hold water. This is what we stand for. This is what they have to disprove.
Very much. Let's invite Amirul.
Mr. Speaker, one quote from a very wise man. You fail to plan, you plan to fail, Mr. Speaker. And basically, the government didn't really thoroughly think of what they're trying to do by allowing these prisoners who actually have committed a very large crimes and they are really high in number. So basically, what were you even thinking of when you started to come out with this motion, Mr. Speaker? They're literally planning to fail. Because this motion, as you already know it, will fail and won't even be approved in the first place, Mr. Speaker. And how is that so? Well, how I'm going to structure my debate for today, Mr. Speaker, is that I will firstly rebut something that the opening government side stated, and also I will move on to three of my arguments. And firstly, firstly, before I start out with the fun part of the debate, let me firstly state what my leader of opposition forgot to state before, which is that our stance for today is that how approving this motion will bring more harm than good. Well, what the opening government side did try to say is that the corruption is occurring in the status quo right now is because the lack of state initiatives. And if they do, if the state do come up with initiatives, it will basically curb the problem, and it can improve it can stop the problem from reoccurring over and over again. Democracy, I mean, when they try to say that okay, these prisoners should have the freedom in society, they should be accepted in society, and some of the prisoners won't get jobs, Mr. Speaker, and they will try to make these prisoners get jobs. But okay, but even if these prisoners get jobs, basically we try to say that okay, these prisoners can be a cashier in McDonald's, Mr. Speaker. These prisoners, if the society know what they did before, the society actually, we can really approve that society can just accept this. Oh, you're a prisoner. Okay, never mind. I'm just okay with that. You can, like, suddenly you're standing in the cashier. Oh, okay, may I take your order? The society won't really be okay. They won't really order from McDonald's after they find out what suddenly the prisoner is standing in the cashier, Mr. Speaker, and no thank you. You see, there's a problem that the government side is trying to think. They want to try to improve democracy in the country and also implement acceptance society. But what they didn't really think it thoroughly, Mr. Speaker. And the states still lack of their initiative. Still lack of initiatives. And no thank you. Also, okay, moving on to my three arguments for today. And firstly, how it will harm the country's condition. And secondly, how it will harm the morality of the prisoners. And secondly, how it will harm the prisoners. The society. Okay. Firstly, why do the opening opposition side came up with the point that the argument that it will harm the country's condition? Well, we believe that, okay, as we say, it's very hard. It's not really possible to go okay, in election. There are parties that really they will do anything. They will go really far, come up with they will start to brainstorm on how to win the election themselves. And if they are really desperate, they will even bribe prisoners. It's not. That's what's that's what the government side is trying to, the government side doing. They will do anything in their power to make sure everyone votes for them. But currently, right now in status quo, this government side doesn't allow prisoners to vote. What if they do? There are allowed to vote. It will make a drastic change, as what my leader of opposition said before. Well, just imagine. But before that, yeah.
Should we also just ban elections because the government is so desperate to bribe people?
Yeah, but that's the problem, Mr. Speaker. Okay. The government side, the ones who are superior, will want to keep out their forces. It's not that there's no such thing as a party that won't want to be the state that rules that governs in a country. Because as if you guys can really take desperate, can really go that far to be the one selected to govern the country. And basically you can, and if prisoners are allowed to vote, it will make a drastic change, as my leader of opposition said. So, and if we don't, imagine what if we don't harm if we don't allow prisoners to vote, it will be it will be a better country to live in. It will be more comfortable. There won't be if you're trying to bribe prisoners by, if you vote for me, we'll get you off, it will get you come out of prison earlier. And really means a government, opening government, you really want to bribe prisoners, done such a thing, and probably if they are freed, they will even commit more suicide, even more crimes, because the society will not accept them. It's really hard to make them accept them, as they are already prisoners. They will keep on making crimes, and secondly, on how it will harm the morality of the prisoners. Well, okay, as I said before about the McDonald's cashier thing, if the prisoners are like, why is it suddenly no one is at McDonald's today? Why is no one buying from me? Why is no one lining up in front of my cashier? So basically they will, okay, maybe it's because I am prisoner and I'm destined to be a prisoner. I can never be accepted in society. They'll just continue on being what they are. They're prisoners. They're criminals. They do crime. They will like, what's the point of even be free? Be freed. Prison might be better than this. Not being, I know how it feels like. Not being accepted in society feels worse than any type of, not being accepted by anyone feels worse than being caged in somewhere. And so, lastly, on how you harm society. As I said before, it will really harm society because these are prisoners, Mr. Speaker. These prisoners, they won't just, even if they do realize their crime, they will be looked down upon by the society from all the reasons I stated below. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Start debate in closing. Half member of government. Amira E or Amira I? E.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. There are many different kinds of prisoners in the world. There are like the really bad ones, the rapists, the ones who murder, the ones who rob. And there are those who end up in prison because of one irrational mistake, like getting drunk and driving. They are still an integral part of societies. Prisoners are still an integral part of society. So it is, as the opening government said, that it is the state's duty to protect everyone's rights, no matter if they're prisoners or they're poor people or they're desperate people, whatever. Okay, so when you allow prisoners to vote,
you are actually getting an insight of their point of view. So it's not like prisoners don't make up like 50% of the state. They're not going to affect half of the vote. So what we will get is actually a point of view from the prisoners. And that is actually very valuable because prisoners are victims of they are victims of the actions of the government. They are the actions carried out by the government, the punishments, whatever. They get the first hand outcomes. Okay, what the opposition said just now about the guy, the people not ordering from the guy at MACD. Okay, first, the guy's not going to be wearing a jumpsuit. People aren't going to be like, oh my god, he's wearing a jumpsuit, he's a prisoner, don't order from him. He's going to be wearing a normal MACD uniform. One more thing, people go to MACD for the food, not for the people who actually give you the food. It's not like if they give you the food, they're going to like change the taste of it. People don't care about the people. They just go for MACD for the food. Who doesn't? And next, bribery. Bribery happens everywhere, not just prisoners. They can happen to poor people, desperate people. No, sit down first. Poor people, desperate people. Anyone who gets anyone the state thinks that the state will obviously want votes, and once they get votes, they will do anything. You know, there's corruption, there's bribery. It's not just prisoners who are affected. Right now, there's bribery, corruption going on everywhere. We all know that. And then prisoners are placed inside prisons for rehabilitation, for justice. Let's say the state bribes them and say that they come out. They're supposed to be there in 10 years, say, and they say, okay, you go first, you come out maybe 2 years earlier, and then the opposition said when they come out they're gonna do more crimes and whatever. They're coming out 2 years earlier than they're supposed to. How much difference can it actually make if the person is in the prison and they get, it's a rehabilitation center or whatever, right? If you got earlier and you commit crime, okay, fine. You got later, you still commit crime. What is really the difference? In just a few years, they're not going to give you like, oh, when you vote for it, you're just free to go like that. Obviously not. Okay, prisoners are actually condemned by media. We don't actually know the real thing that what's really going on in the prisons. Like, you can say, oh, I watched that movie, I know what goes on in prisons, there's like beating up and all of that, like, but they have beds, they have like food, they have everything. We don't actually know what's going on. The media's not going to show all the happy parts of prisons because we don't want to encourage people to commit crime and go to prison. They're only going to show the bad parts, and obviously we don't actually know what's going on there. It could be horrible conditions. We don't know. Obviously, if they actually show like really, really horrible conditions, we'll think, oh my god, it's so horrible. I don't want to go to prison and everything like that. But we don't actually really know. It could be worse than horrible. It's just that they'll be like, oh my god, they're treating it so badly. I mean, isn't that like a breach of human rights? They're not going to show us all that. They're just going to like give us the outline, the pretty little outline of how we shouldn't go to prison. Okay. Yes.
Ma'am, are you trying to say that the prisoners won't affect the voting system? So that means you're actually shafting your opening, but they are saying that these prisoners will give an effect to the voting system for their own benefit.
I'm not saying that the prisoners are not going to give any effect to the voting. Of course, they're going to give effect. There are a lot of prisoners. What I'm saying is, it is a first step in the long run that we get the point of view of the subjects of the government, what the government has been doing to them. We get their point of view, and we actually know. We're actually quite. We can actually be quite clueless to what's really going on behind all the politics of the government, whatever the states, whatever. So, and the prisoners are already affected by that, so they actually know. So, in the long run, the point of view from them is actually really helpful, and obviously they will affect. But it's not going to cause like a whole drastic change where everyone's just like, how did that happen? No, it's not going to be like that. I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but I think prisoners are like made up of obviously less than half of the normal part of society. Okay, with that, thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite you member of the
Basically, the perception of the media is against prisoners is kind of false, because we have Nelson Mandela, who is a hero, and he went in prison and still is perceived as a hero right now. So whatever closing government said about the media is against the prisoners is somehow false, Madam Speaker. That's number one. Number two, the closing government also stated that it won't also affect the voting system, the people, the amount of these people going to vote is not really going to affect who is going to be elected or what so or not. Because right now, the state is actually giving the rights to the prisoners, but yet again, does the state going to fulfill what the prisoners want? That is what they failed to say in the first place, Madam Speaker, sir. But before I move on, let me tell you who are the majority prisoners in these prison cells, especially in Malaysia, Madam Speaker, sir. We have drug dealers, we have murderers, we have rapists, we have gangsters, and we have corruptors and high-profile criminals in prisons. Yeah, you say they are human. Like the government said they are human. Yes, they are human, but they are humans who harm other humans and yet again spoils the system and spoils the nation. Why do we want to give to them to vote? That's number one. government, the state is being given the mandate by the public. So because democracy is about by the people, from the people, for the people, and that is what democracy is all about. And please sit down. The first thing about the public, we look at this issue negatively, as they are the majority stakeholders. That is one. They also agreed that the public is also a majority stakeholder, and the role of government is actually to serve the public's interest, especially the people. Why? It is because we want to maintain peace and no conflicts among the people. And it is also bad when we have conflicts, and as we know what happened in a lot of times and cases, even without the prisons, we already have conflicts. What else if we have prisoners? There will be more conflicts. That is what we are trying to say. And we are not so the solution is by not allowing these prisoners to vote, giving them the rights to vote. That's the basic thing we want to say. And we're trying to say that right now status quo is okay slightly, even though if they say it's bad, under their paradigm, they'll make status quo worse. They will worsen status quo. And to my second extension, the harms. These prisoners also undergo mental problems, and also they have no rational calculus over what decisions they are going to do. So even if they play the prisoner's dilemma stage, they won't actually, the trade-offs that they're going to make is not by voting, because absolutely, if the public is still against them, then they cannot actually do anything for that. And with that, thank you.
Good debate on side. Government, start with. Yeah.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I would like to, my talk today would consist of the rebuttal of the Deputy of Leader of Opposition's point, which is that the initiative of allowing prisoners to vote will affect society. Okay, so what we don't know is that prisoners are actually, yes, they are prosecutors. However, they are victims of, number one, the government's actions, and also the society's discrimination. So the government's actions is that they have to endure through the government services, and they themselves have a point of view. Yes, bribery does occur. However, bribery is a confidential form of crime where the government is responsible for this action, and if the government is okay, never mind that. The leader of opposition said that the economy will be affected if we actually allow the prisoners to vote. So as the opening government has mentioned that if we actually allow the prisoners to vote, they are considered a production of say in prison. The prisoners do not only consist of the prisoners do not only consist of those who committed major crimes. They also consist of people who have served sentences and who are going to be released in another few more years. Now, the release of prisoners does not only the release of prisoners. In order for the prisoners to be released, they need to be mentally and physically rational, and in this way, this if they are not mentally and psychologically rational, they will not be released. See, that's the role of the guards. The guards are there to actually to observe, vigilate the progress of the prisoners, and when they observe through yes.
So you're actually saying that the prisoners inside the prison are not irrational to vote. And so this debate is actually whether that particular people actually have the right or are allowed to vote for the elections. Your response?
No, I'm not saying that prisoners are irrational, but they like Amira stated, some of these crimes are done by act of stupidity and irrationality. So in order for a person to be released, they need to be completely and holistically rational. And to actually monitor their progress, that's the role of the safeguards. The safeguards are there and provided by the government to actually monitor their progress in order for them to be released. If they are not rational, how are they supposed to be released? How are they supposed to join society? And that's where society. Okay, sorry. Let me talk about the role of the stereotype that society has created. Society has created the stereotype and the mindset that prisoners are all bad, prisoners are all negative. When in actual fact, they do not know that some prisoners are rational and aware of the consequences that might actually entail if they actually commit a crime. Yes.
You're trying to say that prisoners, if they want to be released, they need to be rational. But right now they're in prison, so that means you're trying to say that they're not rational. And certainly you need to be rational to vote. So what are you trying to say right now?
Sorry, what I'm trying to say is actually the prisoners, in order to be released, yes, they do need to be rational. And I'm not saying that it's a matter of rationality, but sorry, do you mind repeating your question? I'm so sorry. Yeah.
You're trying to say that prisoners in prison cells are actually irrational because they're not released. If they are rational, then they're released, then they will be back to society. Is that what you're trying to say?
They're not entirely blended into society, but they are released because number one, they have served their sentence, and they in order for them to be released, they should in order for them to be released, they do not only have to serve their sentence, but they also have to be correct in mindfully and mentally correct. And that, as I said before, the government provides safeguards to monitor their progress. And sorry, I'm so sorry. The prisons are there to rehabilitate prisons are rehabilitation centers for prisoners. Am I right? So in prisons, the media is actually filtered with positive with positive values. The positive values are embedded in media and filtered to be given to the prisoners, and the prisoners will experience the positive medias and in order and soak up the media to in order in their process of the recovery. And if the government if prisoners were allowed the privilege to vote, the privilege to vote is considered as the least privilege given to prisoners, as they are discriminated by society, and they have to endure the prosecution done by the government. And in the process of rehabilitation, they are given positive embedded media, and the positive embedded media will not only affect the prisoners, but also the positive embedded media can also be given to the nation to actually to give them positive exposure to both the people inside the prison and outside the prison, and as an effect, they will actually learn from the media, because the media has a big influence in. Sorry. Oh no, my time's over. Yeah.
Thank you very much. To conclude the debate, and I'd like to invite Octave.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get this debate clear. Firstly, this debate today is not actually about the technicalities that happens in the prison, whether that rehabilitation is actually a mistake or anything done wrong by the person who is in charge of managing the prison itself. The debate should actually be whether or not the prisoners inside the prison have the right to vote or not. Secondly, the mistakes done by the government side is that this debate should be actually about prisoners, not about ex-convicts who are the prisoners who have gotten out of the prison. So this debate is actually about the particular people, the prisoners who are actually currently in prison itself, about the particular people, not about their rights of voting when they have gotten out of the prison itself. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a few clashes in the debate. Firstly, it's the right to be equal by the prisoners versus government duty to protect and provide a conducive atmosphere for the general population's life. Okay, so coming out from the opening government side, they said that prisoners are exposed to bad influences in the prisons. These are actually the mistakes of the technicalities of the prison itself, whether the rehabilitation have problems, or maybe the supervision processes have problems. Sit down, sir. I'm just getting started. Secondly, they had also stated that prisons are not doing their roles. So this goes same to the technicality debate. It does not have anything much to do whether or not prisoners are allowed to vote or not. Please sit down, sir. And then they also stated that we can make them as fresh innocents when we allow them to vote, and when you let them vote, they will be recognized, and jobs will be given to ex-prisoners. Ex-prisoners will be decreased. Ex-prisoners will have bad image. Firstly, with the closing opposition's paradigm is that we believe that it is more important to protect the public and the general population's right to live as convenient and as conducive as they want to, and over the rights of the prisoner itself to vote. The very strong argument is given by the member of opposition itself, how he said public trust would actually affect to when this is actually being implemented, when people are actually looking bad towards the government, when the government itself are giving the privilege or the right for the prisoners to vote, when he already proved how prisoners is being looked bad by the society itself. So this is how we, from the closing opposition, believes that under our paradigm, the people's welfare, the general population welfare is more prioritized rather than the rights of the prisoner to be equal in terms of the majority and the utility that we can achieve at the end of the day. Yes, sir, before that.
The ability to vote is a right that the states give to individuals to fight for what they think that the state can accord to them and what they think that they need. The same way, just because it's not about what discrimination or problems that there are within prisons, what that prisoner can do with that one vote to change his lifestyle within jail, to make his lifestyle better, like every other person wants to do.
So I got your point. So you're trying to say when they have the privilege to vote and they voted for a single thing, their life will change as a whole. They will become, suddenly the whole society will become, oh, this prisoner is already a better person for the future. Wow, he has voted, so it's just like my very obedient son. That is not the current situation out there. That is not the problem. We don't see that as the problem today. What we're seeing actually, this is only worsen the situation, because we all know that this is explained by my member of opposition. We all know that the prisoners are looked bad. So when the government actually giving them the chance to vote, it will make the public, the general population, see the government as not being responsibility, and the government is ignoring the right of the general population to live in the conducive way, in a way that they want, in a way that they feel safe, where their people around them is also are the safe people, and the decisions are made by rational people. And then the government side also say that, sit down, sir, when we hire, when the society will approval and they deserve equal rights to be recognized. And they believe no technical issues should be debated, said by the opening government second speaker. This is how inconsistencies happen in the opening government side. First, the first speaker has stated how the technicalities of the prisons are being not functioning good. And then secondly, the second speaker stood up and said that technicalities of the prison should not be debated. Inconsistency. Okay, so moving on to the second issue of today, which is the qualification of prisoners to vote in terms of rationality of the prisons. So basically what is argued by the closing government side is that ex-convicts are already rational after they have gone through all this rehabilitation process and all this punishment process in the prison itself. Why we believe this argument is not valid and is considered as the red herring argument is because the debate today is not about whether the ex-convicts are allowed to vote or not. It's about the prisoners inside the prison itself. And then they are also admitted that the prisoners inside the prisons are irrational. They are mentally and physically tortured. They are desperate. They cannot do the best decision that a normal people and average normal people would have ever had. So automatically, the closing government side is supporting the opposition side, which is our side more, because we believe that the people are in the prisons are actually actually being punished. So they are desperate. When they are desperate, it is the human nature to have tendency to make more mistakes and unconsiderable decision when we are desperate. So they are trying to prove that prisoners inside the prison are not allowed in the end of the day to vote. So this is what the problems what the problems of the government said. There are also contradiction. First, the contradiction from the opening government saying that the prisoners are actually rational enough and have the right to vote. But coming up from the closing government, they say that prisoners are not rational enough and cannot vote for the sake of the country itself. With all the points given, with all of the speech given by me, I'm glad to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the debate, guys. Please come forward, take hands, and we are live. Hijaz, you spoke first, right? You're Hijaz, right?
God.